Welcome to After Hours, where stories come alive after dark. I'm Vaughn. 8 nights, and we've crossed 3 continents: Lagos, London, Nairobi. And tonight, we arrive at the place this story has been pointing to since episode 6. Istanbul, a city of 15 million people. A city that sits on 2 continents, the only place on Earth where you can stand in Europe and see Asia across the water. A city of empires and ruins and secrets layered on top of each other like sediment. And tonight, a city where a handshake will change everything. I need you to pay attention. Because what happens in this episode is different. Everything before this was preparation, research, reconnaissance, the careful, quiet work of getting into position. Tonight, Amara steps into the open. Tonight, she walks into a room full of the most dangerous people on the planet and extends her hand to one of them. And Simon Cross is already there. This is The Signal. Episode 8, The Intercept. Previously, on The Signal, Amara met the Missing Voices Project in Kibera, 4 activists who had spent 4 years documenting what nobody else would. 31 disappearances across East Africa. Journalists, organizers, lawyers, all of them investigating corporate interests, all of them gone. A researcher named Joseph had spoken to Emeka 1 month before he died. Emeka had a source inside Nexus. A woman. One of the 23 people in the deep archive. Simon Cross arrived in Nairobi. He traced Amara to the guest house on Mpaka Road. She was already gone. He got to the bus terminal at 2:31 p.m. The Mombasa coach was still boarding. 40 meters. That's how close he got. But the manifest said Wanjiku Mwangi. Not Catherine Obi. Not Amara Okafor. The bus pulled out. Cross watched it leave. And he sent assets to Mombasa to intercept. But Amara didn't go to Mombasa. Not the way he expected. She took the coast road. Then a ferry to Dar es Salaam. Then a flight from Tanzania to Istanbul on a different passport. 3 countries, 2 identities, 0 trail, and now she's here, in a city where minarets meet skyscrapers, and the Bosphorus cuts the world in half. The IDEF Defense Conference opens tomorrow. Viktor Petrov will be there, and so will Yuki Tanaka. Istanbul at dawn. I've been to this city. More than once. And every time, it does the same thing. It stops you. The light on the Bosphorus in the morning is something that hasn't changed in 1,000 years. Gold on blue. The same gold the Byzantines saw. The same blue the Ottomans painted on their mosque tiles. It's a city that makes you feel small. And right now, Amara Okafor needed to feel small. Because small meant invisible. And invisible was the only thing keeping her alive. 6:22 a.m. Istanbul Sabiha Gökçen Airport. The Asian side. Amara cleared immigration with a Tanzanian passport. Name: Wanjiku Mwangi. Occupation: freelance journalist. Duration of stay: 5 days. Purpose: media coverage of the IDEF Defense Exhibition. The customs officer looked at the passport. Looked at her face. Looked at the passport again. Then stamped it and waved her through. 15 seconds. That's how long a life depends on a border stamp.
Through. Breathe. Keep walking.
She took a taxi across the Bosphorus Bridge, watching the city unfold below. The Sultanate mosques on the European side, their domes catching the first sun. The container ships in the strait, moving slowly, trailing white foam on dark water. The fishing boats of Iminonu, already out, already working. A city that had been the capital of 3 empires. Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman. A city that had seen every kind of power and survived every kind of fall. She checked into a small hotel in Beyoğlu. 4th floor. The room had a narrow window with a view of rooftops and satellite dishes and, beyond them, the distant silver line of the Golden Horn. She set up her laptop, checked Yuki's encrypted channel.
I landed 3 hours ago. Ataturk side? The device is ready. Palm geometry capture. Conductive polymer, transparent when applied. You won't feel it. Neither will he. One hand shake. 3 seconds of contact. That's all I need.
Where do we meet?
Not before the conference. Too risky. If Cross has people watching arrivals, 2 women meeting before IDEF opens is a flag. I'll be inside. Row 12 of the main exhibition hall. Find me during the opening reception tomorrow evening.
Row 12. Copy.
Amara. One thing. The polymer captures raw biometric data, but I need clean data to build the clone. If the handshake is interrupted, if he pulls away too fast, if the contact is less than 3 seconds, it won't be enough.
3 seconds.
3 seconds. Make them count.
Let me tell you about the IDEF Defense Conference. Imagine a trade show. Now imagine the products are weapons systems, surveillance platforms, encrypted communication networks, and private intelligence services. Imagine the buyers are governments, military commanders, intelligence agencies, and corporations that need problems to disappear. IDEF draws 12,000 attendees from 92 countries. 3 days of panels, presentations, demonstrations, and networking events where handshakes carry the weight of billion-dollar contracts and the fate of populations. The exhibition floor covers 40,000 square meters. Drones, armored vehicles, satellite systems, cyber warfare suites, and in the quieter corners, the real business. The private meetings, the whispered deals, the intelligence that doesn't appear on any brochure. This is the world Viktor Petrov lives in, the world he built his career in. And tomorrow, he would walk through those doors like a king returning to court. Day 1. The IDEF conference floor. Amara entered at 9 a.m. Press badge around her neck. The identity Yuki had built, Sarah Okonkwo, freelance defense correspondent for an online security journal based in Johannesburg. The exhibition hall was enormous. High ceilings, LED screens the size of buildings, corporate booths with logos that belonged on stock exchanges, and munitions catalogs. Men and women in suits moving between displays. Military officers in dress uniforms from countries Amara had only read about. She walked the floor slowly, learning the geography, where the exits were, where the reception halls were, where the security checkpoints stopped checking.
Main hall. 3 exits. Emergency doors at the south and west walls. Security at the primary entrance. Badge scanners but no bag checks after the main gate. Networking reception tonight. East wing. Open bar. This is where Petrov will be. This is where hands get shaken.
She found row 12, a display of surveillance technology from a German firm. Yuki was there, standing in front of a booth demonstrating real-time facial recognition software. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. They didn't speak, didn't make eye contact. Yuki was wearing a conference badge that said Kaori Ishida, Technical Analyst, Tokyo. As Amara passed, Yuki dropped something into the pocket of her blazer. A small plastic case, the size of a contact lens container. Inside, the polymer patch. Transparent, flexible, warm to the touch. Designed to mold to the contours of a palm and capture a full biometric geometry map through the skin. 3 seconds. 1 handshake. Amara spent the rest of the day building her cover. She attended panels on cybersecurity. She took notes. She introduced herself to exhibitors. Asked questions. Collected brochures. Built a paper trail that said journalist, journalist, journalist. And she watched. She watched the way people moved at IDEF. The clusters of power. The hierarchy of attention. Who talked to whom? Who waited? Who was approached? By 4 p.m., she had identified Viktor Petrov's booth. Aegis Partners. 8th row. A sleek display of risk assessment and corporate security services. The legitimate face of Nexus. He wasn't there yet. His people were. 2 assistants. A security detail that didn't wear badges. And a schedule board that listed Viktor Petrov's speaking engagement at the evening reception. 7 p.m. East Wing. Keynote on private sector security partnerships. After the keynote, cocktail reception, open networking, the handshake zone. Let me tell you about Viktor Petrov, because you need to understand what Amara was walking toward. This wasn't a man who sat behind a desk. This was a man who had built his career in the space between governments and the private sector. The gray zone. The place where intelligence agencies and corporations shared resources and objectives, and the line between protecting national security and protecting profit margins disappeared entirely. Viktor Petrov, 53, born in St. Petersburg. Military intelligence for 7 years before emigrating to Israel in the early 2000s. Israeli citizenship, then private sector, consulting, risk assessment, security, which meant surveillance, asset management, problem resolution. He spoke 4 languages. He had connections in 14 countries. He attended charity galas and defense conferences and embassy receptions with the same ease. A man who moved between worlds because he understood that in the modern economy, power wasn't about which world you belonged to. It was about belonging to all of them. His handshake, people said, was firm, direct. The handshake of a man who believed in looking you in the eye when he decided your fate. And embedded in the palm geometry of that handshake was the biometric key to every secret Nexus had buried. Every client, every operation, every name on the list. 147 disappeared, 23 deep archived, Emeka Okafor, Faith Aichieng, all of them reduced to files in a system that one man's hand could unlock. 7 p.m. East Wing. The reception hall was designed to impress. Polished marble floors. A chandelier that caught light and scattered it across the room like trapped stars. Waiters in black carrying silver trays of champagne and canapes. 300 people. Defense contractors. Intelligence officers. Diplomats. Corporate executives. And somewhere in the room, a Nigerian woman with a transparent polymer patch pressed into the palm of her right hand. Amara entered, wearing a charcoal blazer and dark trousers. Press badge visible, messenger bag over her shoulder. She looked the part, composed, professional, a journalist attending a reception she'd attended 100 times before. But her heart was running at 112 beats per minute. She counted. Old GCHQ training. Know your body. Know when it's lying to you. She spotted Petrov immediately. Center of the room, holding a champagne glass in his left hand, his right hand free, always free. A cluster of 5 people around him. 2 women in military dress, a man in a dark suit who looked like private security, and 2 men who could have been executives from any corporation on the planet. Petrov was laughing at something. The easy laugh of a powerful man among peers. His silver-streaked hair was swept back. His suit probably cost more than Amara's hotel room for the week. She positioned herself at the bar, ordered sparkling water, and waited.
Not yet. Too many people around him. Wait for the circle to thin. Wait for the natural break. The moment when the conversation cycles and someone new can approach. 3 seconds. That's all. 3 seconds of contact.
She waited 40 minutes. The reception moved and shifted like a living thing. Groups formed and dissolved. People migrated between conversations the way planets shift between orbits. At 7:42 p.m., the circle around Petrov thinned. The 2 military women left. One of the executives excused himself. Petrov was momentarily alone with his security detail, refilling his champagne. Amara moved. What I'm about to describe took less than 90 seconds. But time moves differently when everything depends on it. Every second stretches. Every detail burns into memory. This is the moment this entire story has been building toward. From the signal, to the list, to the cipher, to Nairobi, to this room in Istanbul. 1 handshake. Amara approached the bar where Petrov stood. She picked up a cocktail napkin, positioned herself within his sightline, made eye contact. Then she did what GCHQ had trained her to do. She became exactly what the target expected to see.
Mr. Petrov, Sarah Okonkwo. I write for the African Defense Review. Your keynote on private sector security partnerships was impressive, especially the section on threat mitigation in post-conflict zones.
Petrov turned. His eyes assessed her in less than a second. The way a predator assesses movement. Not a threat. Interesting. Press. Possibly useful.
Thank you. The post-conflict space is where the real work happens. Governments rebuild infrastructure. We rebuild trust.
That's a powerful framing. I'd love to quote you on that. Could I schedule a brief interview while you're in Istanbul?
My schedule is demanding, but give your details to my office. We can discuss.
He extended his hand. This is the moment. Right here. A man extends his hand to a woman in a blazer at a cocktail reception. The most ordinary gesture in the world. A greeting. A formality. A social contract older than language. But in the palm of her right hand, a polymer patch was warming to body temperature. Conductive. Invisible. Ready.
A pleasure, Mr. Petrov.
She took his hand. Firm. Direct. Looked him in the eye. 1 second. The polymer made contact, his palm geometry pressing into the patch. Ridge patterns. Depth mapping. Vein structures visible through the conductive layer. 2 seconds. She held the grip. Not too tight. Not too long. The practiced handshake of a professional woman who had shaken 1,000 hands at 1,000 events. 3 seconds. She let go. Smiled. Took a business card from her blazer pocket and handed it to him. The card was fake. The handshake was real.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll have my assistant reach out.
He turned to greet someone else. Already moving on. Already forgetting. He would never know that in those 3 seconds, the biometric key to his entire operation had been captured. That the lines of his palm had been recorded with enough resolution to build a working clone. That the woman in the charcoal blazer had just stolen the most valuable thing he carried. Not a document, not a password, his identity.
Got it. Moving to exit. Stay calm. Walk normal speed. Don't look back.
Amara set her glass on the bar, adjusted her messenger bag, walked toward the east exit of the reception hall. 20 meters to the door. 15, 10, and then she saw him. Standing by the entrance, arms folded, scanning the room with the systematic precision of a machine. Simon Cross. I need you to understand what happened next. Because in stories there's a moment where everything goes wrong and everything goes right at exactly the same time, where the plan succeeds and the plan falls apart in the same breath. This is that moment. Cross hadn't seen her yet. He was scanning the room, left to right, systematic. The way he'd been trained, he was wearing a conference badge. Different name, different company, but the same eyes, cold, calculating. The eyes of a man who had followed the trail from Nairobi to Mombasa to Dar es Salaam to Istanbul. Because that's what Cross did. He didn't chase. He predicted. He mapped the pattern. Amara was heading to Istanbul. He'd known that since the cargo manifest mentioned IDEF. He'd arrived 2 days ahead. And now he was standing between Amara and the exit.
Cross. By the east door. 12 meters. He hasn't seen me. South exit. Behind the bar. Through the kitchen corridor.
Amara changed direction. Smooth. No panic. She picked up a fresh glass from the bar. Turned as if she was looking for someone. Casual. Natural. But her hand was trembling. The glass rattled against the saucer. She set it down. The south exit was behind a service corridor. Staff only. But staff doors at events like this were rarely locked. Too many caterers. Too much traffic. She walked toward it, head down. Press badge turned so the name wasn't visible. Cross moved. Not toward her. He hadn't identified her. He was repositioning. Working the room. Checking faces. Methodical. But his sweep would reach her corner of the room in less than a minute.
Move. Now.
She pushed through the service door. A kitchen corridor. Stainless steel. Steam. The clatter of plates and the urgent voices of catering staff in Turkish. She walked fast, but didn't run. Running in a kitchen corridor draws attention. Walking with purpose doesn't. A loading dock exit at the end of the corridor. She pushed through the fire door. Night air, the smell of diesel and cigarettes and the Bosphorus. She was outside, a service alley between the convention center and a parking structure. She started running. 3 blocks. Amara ran 3 blocks through the streets of Istanbul before she heard the footsteps behind her. Not cross, not his rhythm. Heavier. Faster. Someone younger. Someone cross had positioned outside. A net. The streets of old Istanbul at night. Cobblestone. Narrow. Ottoman-era buildings with wooden balconies and iron railings. Shop fronts closed behind metal shutters. The occasional neon sign in Turkish, casting pink and blue light on wet stone. She turned left on a narrow street. The sound of the Bosphorus somewhere close. A mosque's minaret lit from below, its spire cutting the dark sky. The footsteps were closer now. 2 sets.
2 behind. 1 on the parallel street. They're boxing me in. Need to break the pattern.
She cut through an alley. Climbed a short wall. Dropped into a courtyard where an old man sat smoking, his eyes wide at the woman who had just appeared from nowhere. Through a gate. Another street. Downhill now. Toward the waterfront. The footsteps split. 1 behind. 1 circling. And then the shot. Not a gunshot the way you hear it in movies. Not a bang. A sharp crack that echoed off the stone walls and died in the narrow street. Followed by a sound like a fist hitting a leather jacket. The impact spun her. I want to pause here, because what I'm about to tell you, I need you to hear it the way it happened, not as action, not as spectacle. As a human being in pain, the bullet grazed her left upper arm, through the jacket, through the skin. Not deep enough to hit bone or muscle, deep enough to bleed, deep enough to hurt like nothing she had felt before. Amara pressed herself against a stone wall, an alley, dark. A single streetlight at the far end casting blue light that didn't reach her. She looked at her arm. The jacket was torn. The fabric around the tear was dark, wet. She pressed her right hand against it, and her palm came away warm and red.
Graze, not through. Bleeding but manageable. Keep pressure. Keep moving.
She could hear the footsteps. Slower now. Careful. They'd heard the shot too. They were scanning. She pressed deeper into the shadows, her back against stone that had been there for 500 years, her breath coming in short pulls, the pain in her arm pulsing with her heartbeat. In her messenger bag, the polymer patch with Viktor Petrov's palm geometry. 3 seconds of contact, the key to everything. In her arm, a bullet grazed that said someone had tried to stop her. And in the dark of an Istanbul alley, the sound of men hunting. She moved. Down the alley. Away from the footsteps, her left arm pressed tight against her body, her right hand clutching the messenger bag strap. The waterfront. She could smell it. The salt. The diesel. The particular wetness that waterfront air carries at night. She emerged on a cobblestone road that ran along the shore. The Bosphorus was right there. Black water. The lights of the Asian side reflected in long gold streaks. A row of small boats. Fishing boats. Private water taxis. The kind that ferried people between the shores of Istanbul for a price. She found one. A man sitting in the back, smoking. The boat bobbing gently at the dock.
I need to cross. Now. Asian side. Kadikoy.
The man looked at her, at the blood on her jacket, at her face, tight with pain and determination. He named a price. She paid it without negotiating. Twice what it was worth. The price of silence. The engine coughed to life. The boat pulled away from the dock. Into the current of the Bosphorus. Behind her, the European shore. The convention center lit like a beacon. The narrow streets where men were still searching. Amara sat in the back of the boat, her hand pressed against her arm. The blood had slowed. The wound was shallow, but it burned. A line of fire across her skin that the cold night air only sharpened. The Bosphorus at night. black water. The lights of 2 continents reflected and distorted. A city split in half by a current that had been dividing worlds since before history had a name. She was crossing it now. From Europe to Asia. From the conference to the shadow. From the moment she had shaken Viktor Petrov's hand to whatever came next. The biometric data was in her bag. The key to the cipher. The thing that could unlock 147 files and expose 23 fates and burn Nexus to the ground. She had it. She had it, and she was bleeding, and the boat was cutting through the dark water. In Istanbul was a wall of light behind her, and somewhere in that light, Simon Cross was standing in a narrow street, looking at a spot of blood on a stone wall, and knowing, with absolute certainty, that she was still alive. He would keep coming. He always kept coming. Let me tell you what happened in the hours that followed, because the handshake was just the beginning. The escape was just the middle. The part that matters, the part that changes everything, happened in a safe house on the Asian side of Istanbul at 11:47 p.m. Yuki was waiting. A rented apartment in Kadıköy, 3rd floor, the kind of place where short-term rentals didn't ask for identification, and the walls were thick enough to muffle a conversation. Amara arrived bleeding. Yuki didn't panic. She'd read enough medical documentation to handle a field dressing. She cleaned the wound, applied butterfly strips, wrapped it.
It's not deep. No muscle damage. But you need to keep it clean. Infection is the real risk.
Later, the patch first.
Amara peeled the polymer from her palm. 3 seconds of Viktor Petrov's identity, captured in a layer of conductive material thinner than a postage stamp. Yuki took it, connected it to a reader she'd built from components ordered from 6 different countries. A device that looked like a modified smartphone, with wires running to a flat glass plate.
The data is clean. Full palm geometry. Ridge patterns, valley depths, pore positions, vein map. This is better than I expected.
How long to build the clone?
The physical prosthetic? 12 hours. I need to print the geometry onto a new polymer base, layer it with conductive material, calibrate the capacitance to match human skin. But there's something I need to tell you.
Yuki's voice changed. The usual quick confidence dropping into something more careful. The tone of someone delivering news they wish they didn't have.
While you were at the reception, I ran the biometric data against the encryption schema on the archive files. The palm geometry is one of 3 authentication factors.
3.
Palm, retinal scan, and a rolling numeric code from a physical security token, like a key fob, something Petrov carries on his person.
You're saying the handshake isn't enough?
The handshake gives us one of 3 keys. Without the other 2, the archive stays locked. But here's the thing. The encryption is layered. Each key unlocks a different portion. The palm geometry alone opens the operational database. Active operations, client lists, financial records.
And the retinal scan?
Opens the personnel files, agent identities, asset networks, the names behind the code names.
And the security token?
The deep archive.
The deep archive. 23 names, 23 people who helped journalists tell the truth and disappeared for it. Locked behind a physical key that Viktor Petrov carried in his pocket.
1 key at a time. The operational database is enough to start with. Client lists, financial records, active operations. That's enough for Interpol. That's enough to burn the consortium.
It's enough to start, but not enough to finish.
I know. But right now, I have a bullet graze on my arm and Simon Cross in this city. 1 key at a time.
Yuki nodded. She understood. The perfect was the enemy of the good. And the good, right now, was a palm print captured in 3 seconds at a cocktail reception in Istanbul. She began building the clone, working through the night, layer by layer, a dead man's hand constructed from stolen data and synthetic polymers. While Yuki worked, Amara sat by the window, looking out at the Bosphorus. The lights of the European side reflected on the water, the convention center where she'd shaken Viktor Petrov's hand, and felt his palm geometry print itself into the polymer like a signature. Her arm throbbed. The butterfly strips held, but the pain was a reminder. She was no longer invisible. Cross had people at the conference. He tracked her from Nairobi to Istanbul. He might not know about the handshake, might not know about the polymer, but he knew she was here. He knew she was wounded. And he knew she was running out of room.
One key opens the operational database. Client lists. Active operations. Cross-reference with Njeri's ground-level data, and we have corroboration from inside and outside. Interpol can't ignore that. But the 23. The deep archive. That needs the security token. And the token is on Petrov's body. One problem at a time. Survive tonight. Build the clone. Decrypt what we can. Move.
She checked her dead man switch. 14 hours left on the timer. She sent the reset code. The clock reset. 48 hours. Then she leaned her head against the window. The glass was cold. The Bosphorus was dark. And somewhere across the water, Simon Cross was making calls. Here's what I need you to understand about tonight. Amara succeeded. She got the handshake. She captured the biometric data. She has the key to the operational database. But she's wounded. She's been identified. And she's trapped in a city with Simon Cross and his network of contractors. The cipher has 3 locks. She has 1 key. The operational database. Client lists. Financial records. Every corporation that hired Nexus to make a person disappear. That's power. Real power. The kind that starts investigations and collapses empires. But it's not the whole truth. The deep archive, the 23 people, the fate of a mecha source, all of that is still locked, behind a retinal scan and a security token she doesn't have. And Viktor Petrov just met a woman named Sarah Okonkwo, a journalist. A handshake at a cocktail reception. But by morning, when he learns that someone was shot fleeing the convention center, when Cross tells him that Amara Okafor was in the building, when the security footage is reviewed and a face is matched, by morning he'll know who shook his hand, and Nexus will escalate. Not locally, not regionally, globally, because for the first time someone has a key. And the people who built the locks don't know how much she's already seen. This has been After Hours. You've been listening to The Signal, Episode 8, The Intercept. Tomorrow night, the clone is built. Amara decrypts the